talk here. So, I guess we could formally start now if everybody's ready.
Can I have just 1 second? I didn't
Yeah,
realize
sure.
that my niece
You
hung
sure
a
can.
flag in this room, so forgive me.
Okay.
Are we on camera? Are we being
You
recorded?
are being recorded now, just so you know.
Okay, fantastic. Go
Now's
ahead.
the time to be proper and decent, Tammy. Are you excited, Melissa? Your first meeting?
I'm very excited. I am looking forward to getting to do these in person, which I'm sure you are as well. But yeah, I'm excited to get going here and dive right in.
I don't know what that's like. When I came on the board, this was the way we did things. So this is kind of
Right.
all I know. I actually have gotten really used to this, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's there's something to be said for, doing it from home and being able to, get tea and see your family. But
Right.
whatever the case,
Wear
I'm
pajama
excited.
pants if you'd like.
I don't have any. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. Sorry.
It's the Village Hall. What are you talking about?
So great. So we're just gonna roll right into it. I know we've got an hour slated for us to kind of go over DPW, Public Works. Then we have JPL, and do we have anything on the docket for strategic initiatives tonight?
No,
Tammy?
but we do have 3 items on DPW.
Right.
And I think we're slated for JPL at 7, so.
Oh, at 7. Okay. So I connected with Leanne today, and I mean, she'll go over all of these, the topics. I don't know if it's going to take an hour. Maybe it could, but we can roll right into it. So our first agenda item is
Chair Ursing.
Yes, sorry, Leanne.
Would you like to formally call the meeting to order?
Oh yes, that would be appropriate, right? Sorry, I've never.
No problem.
Love to formally. I guess Tammy? I've never formally.
Arthur Ursing calls the meeting to order.
Okay, so Trustee Ursink calls the meeting to order for May 3rd, 2020.
All right.
I have you at 6:04.
6:04. Perfect. All right, so the first agenda item we have here is Public Works Committee review of Ordinance 3024, an ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 250 of the Shorewood Village Code, Construction Site Erosion Control and Stormwater Management, which was meeting number 8. So Leanne is the presenter, and I guess I should say Director Bushlick is the presenter. Sorry, Leanne, I apologize.
That's okay. I like Leanne, but Leanne is better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll go with Leanne. So Leanne, could you walk us through this?
I would be happy to. I'm just going to warn you that where I am, it's pouring, and I keep getting notes that my bandwidth is low, which I suspect is weather related because I'm not hardwired to anything. So if I get...
You're doing good now.
If you lose me, yeah.
I'll fill in, Leanne, if that happens.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Improv to do.
If it gets real bad, I can switch over to a different one, but that may just take me a couple minutes. So
sounds good.
So this the ordinance that we're asking Public Works Committee to review tonight, it essentially makes housekeeping changes to the Village Codes Chapter 250, Articles 1 and 2. And those relate to construction site erosion control and stormwater management. I would describe these essentially as housekeeping changes. All of the changes were recommended either by the village's DNR stormwater rep or the village's consultant, Clark Dietz, who drafted and presented the stormwater management plan, which you may recall we finished up in December of last year. To be perfectly honest with you, I really don't even have any highlights to call out here. Like I said, it's kind of boring. Stormwater is not boring. I should rephrase this. It's very minor changes to technical language in the code to make sure that we remain in compliance with the DNR's Chapter 151, which regulates stormwater management in municipalities.
So housekeeping, if I may?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The floor is yours. Oh, yep. Okay, so is there, could you give us just is there like a brief synopsis, snapshot of this that you can, I know you just said that it's kind of hard to boil
Yeah,
down.
no,
but-
I really, honestly, I really don't even, it's terminology, language, references to existing codes and documents. There really is no substantive change.
Okay.
In terms of what we would enforce or how we would enforce it.
Sure. Trustee Bachhorst?
So yeah, so I've read it, the memo, and I concur. So I'd like to, if it's all right, make a motion. I need to get my other computer so that
So
I can.
moved.
read it.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you want, I can make the motion, or else we can, let me just make the motion here. I recommend approval of ordinance 3024, an ordinance repealing and replacing chapter 250 of the Shorewood Village Code, construction site erosion control and stormwater management.
Okay, I'll second that. And then, so this is, of course, Melissa, I know you've seen meetings and stuff, but if you want to ask questions or get more clarification, but just before that, I would just say that a lot of these perfunctory housekeeping things, we have to do, and it's important, to have them memorialized, and I'm not trying to discount conversation or questions, but just.
I appreciate hearing that. And I think my general position on on these kind of housekeeping items, if it is the recommendation of our, professional village staff that this is what's necessary to be in compliance with DNR, I'm going to trust the recommendation from our staff
That's great.
on things like this.
Yeah, I think this is also a recommendation from the DNR too. So I think that even gives it a little bit, that gives it even more validity. So fantastic. And the ordinance is in there. It's fairly long. So, I mean, if you're looking for something to read and want to dig in, by all means, I tried, and I didn't get very far.
Yeah.
Sorry, Leanne, but I put it on my
No,
shelf
it's-
for reading later on.
This was dry reading. I don't disagree.
Exciting topic. The ordinance, a little dry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have this behind chapters 14 to whatever of Don Quixote. I had to read the first 13 for graduate school. Interesting book, but very challenging. So, and maybe reading that big chapter in Moby Dick again. This will
Yeah,
be supplement. This will be, my fun break.
I think so. This would be a good one for you. Yeah. Okay, so let's we can move on to the next agenda item.
Oh, wait. So we have a motion and a second.
yeah,
and
I
further
apologize.
discussion.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Okay.
I was not on a committee that had this many procedures, so I apologize. I'm learning now too. So
Oh yeah, I don't think you ever had anything on community and business relations, did you?
not really. No.
Okay, you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. So our next agenda item is Public Works Committee review of Ordinance 3025 and ordinance amending Chapter 225, building construction, and Chapter 415, plumbing standards to comply with the MMSD's Chapter 3 rule, combined sewer service area downspout disconnection, which is meeting number 4. Leanne, can you walk us through this?
Absolutely. So some of you will recall that earlier this year we passed a downspout or approved a downspout disconnection program, and that was done in response to a rule, Rule 3 specifically, Chapter 3 rules from MMSD that require residential properties of 4 units or less in the combined sewer service area, to disconnect their downspouts under certain conditions prior to January 1st of 2025. The village's code actually adopts all MMSD operations rules by reference, but it's staff recommendation that the code be amended to specifically state those conditions that are enumerated in Rule 3, so that it provides more clarity for residents or property owners who may be looking to understand this better, or just looking to verify some of the restrictions and requirements. So ordinance 3025 makes those specific language changes to chapters 225 and chapters 415, because downspouts are addressed both in the building code and in the plumbing code.
So we can open it up for any questions you may have, Trustee Bachhorst or Trustee Baldoff.
Yeah, so I was, so just for Melissa's purpose, I was part of DPW, the committee structure before, so this is Arthur's inaugural, I guess, committee structure with under DPW as well as chairing. So no, I appreciate, I'm ready to go forward, but again, if you guys have questions, I completely understand. And also, okay, one of the things that we did mention before is the need for, proper inspection and everything. I think that I had relayed at, I don't know if it's a general board meeting or in committee, how we had put a rain barrel in incorrectly and it resulted in a fair amount of basement extra water. So,
Really? Wow.
well, it was a slab and, and whatnot. And, there are some modifications that should be made. It's not necessarily, they don't necessarily require a plumber or a professional, but just maybe Google search at the very least. So, but with the environmental initiatives and, the different, how many different, we have the 2 or 3 different kind of modes of water, what's it called? The subterranean water kind of catching.
Sewage conveyance systems, we have 2.
Thank you. Okay. Anyway, that's all I have to say. But there, MMSD had the program a long time ago with free rain barrels, and it was only, I think, on the east side. If I'm not
Correct, in the
mistaken.
combined area. Yep.
Yeah, and then also the free rain gardens too, that they would install for us. And this was ages ago, back when before I lived on the east side, on the west side. So, and they were doing these, of course, to assist with the water treatment and prevent a variety of things, including, a lot of the overflows. So I'm glad to see it. And we've been taking steps, and Arthur, I'm sure that, with your conservation focus, that, if you're not already up to snuff on this, I imagine that this is an area that will highly interest you. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with this. So if somebody would like to make a motion, unless Trustee Baldoff, if you have any questions about this.
I don't.
Okay. So like to make a motion. Would you like to make a motion, Tammy? Anybody like to make a motion? Or I can make a motion too.
You guys go for it.
Okay. So then, and then Melissa, I don't want to speak over your head here, but if you're on the packet, then you're just looking at a packet, it has recommended action required or recommended, and usually the suggested motion is always in the packet. So if you ever want to make a motion, staff suggests language for a motion.
Okay.
You may know that it's just kind of a helpful thing to point out. So if you ever want to make a motion on a specific agenda item, you can always just reference that particular language.
Okay.
So I will move to recommend approval of ordinance 3025, an ordinance amending chapter 225 building construction and chapter 415 plumbing standards to comply with the MMSD's chapter 3 rule, combined sewer service area downspout disconnection.
And I will second that.
Fantastic. All in favor?
Oh, further discussion? No.
Further discussion? Tammy?
No.
No?
None.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Terrific. All right. This next one's a juicy one, though. This is a real exciting one that we've got coming up here next.
Oh,
Director Bush.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chairman. Yeah, just wanted to say that this still has to go to full board for consideration, both of these items that we voted on, that we're referring from committee. And I don't think that we can do this from committee, but, and Melissa, I know you have a lot of governmental experience, but you can always reconsider a vote if you vote on the prevailing side. So there's that too. So just
Thank you.
trying to mentor it as we go along as well. So anyway, sorry.
And both of these items will be scheduled at your May 17th village board meeting
I don't
for
expect
full
any-
board consideration.
these aren't very controversial items. I expect those to be pretty easy passes. But you know, the next one is an interesting item, and I look forward to this conversation. Trustee Bushwick and I had a really great conversation today. We probably could have talked even more about it. So the next agenda item is DPW organizational analysis recommendation review, and that's the Emerald Ash Borer service level. So Leanne, would you like to discuss this agenda item?
Sure, just as some brief background, the village received a DNR urban forestry grant it was for the 2009 grant year to perform a tree inventory update, which we did. The public can actually access our tree inventory through the village website. That includes every street tree and most park trees, has species, size, maintenance history. If it's an ash, it has dates and of its injections, its treatments. And there's some great information there that can be accessed by everyone. But we use it on a daily basis in the forestry staff to develop work plans. So a really important tool for us. And the primary portion of the grant was to update that inventory. But another portion was for the consultants to review the village's emerald ash management plan and assess basically how we are doing related to the policies and the procedures that had been formally adopted, and the actions that we were taking to manage EAB in the village's urban forest. So that document was forwarded to the village board in the early part of last year. And like everything else that happened in the early part of last year, it kind of got tabled. So the completion of that review was one of the recommendations in the department's organizational analysis. And also, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, Trustee Ursink, any change to the village's current operation related to EAB management will require a budget modification. If that is at all to be contemplated for budget year 2022, now is really the time that we need to kind of head back and clear the deck on this and determine how we may want to change that plan or that program moving forward. So that kind of sets the table. This is one of those things that I'm so close to it. It's hard for me to, I feel like I could tell you 2 sentences or I could write a novel. I'm going to struggle to hit a midpoint. So I'll just really try to just outline our current approach. In 2009, the village adopted an emerald ash borer readiness plan. And what that plan did at that time was assess the current situation and what resources were available to address EAB in the village of Shorewood. And at that time, we had about 1,800 ash out of approximately 6,600 in the trees that we care for. And I think it was recognized then that resources were going to be a challenge. So we developed what I would call a hybrid approach, which in that plan identified specific trees for removal and replacement, and then identified the remainder of the ash for a treatment using a systemic insecticide that's injected directly into the tree, that had very good success at protecting a tree from an emerald ash borer infestation. like that plan was adopted in 2009. In 2010, we had some pretty historic rain events that really changed the focus for everybody in the village, but very specifically for our department. The events of that year really pushed back all of our regular significantly impacted our regular operations, but also pushed back most of our what I would call special projects or infrastructure projects by 2 to 3 years. So we did not do any type of ash management work in 2010. We did very little in 2011. We kind of got back on track in 2012, but then 2012 was also the year that we actually started in the ground construction to address the sewer projects. So that was a big focus of our staff starting in 2012 and actually really continues to this day. So we never did remove the trees at the rate that was recommended in the 2009 readiness plan. In 2014, staff proposed a program to the village board whereby we would remove ash trees specifically in construction areas when we did large construction projects, street programs, sewer programs, etc. And those trees were written into the removal and replacement of those trees were written into the contract. So the landscape subcontractor did the removals or contracted the removals and then did the tree replacements. So those trees were done in addition to work that our staff did for its regular forestry operations. We average about 100 trees a year that are removed and replaced, and those are just trees in decline, disease, damage, defects. There are some ash in there. The vast majority of them are not ash. They may be maples in decline, lindens, anything really. Sometimes they're tree versus car and the tree didn't win. So a whole host of reasons, but that program in 2014 is really what gives us the number of ash removals that we have today, which you'll notice in the memo. I referenced the 1814 ash trees that we had in 2009. As of last week, we had 1,387 still standing. So, a double-sided sword. Certainly we, that's a resource that's important to the quality of life for the village for various reasons. But it's a resource that's what I would say being artificially maintained. If we were not treating these trees, they would be dead by now. Emerald ash borer is 100% fatal. When it reaches an ash tree, it will kill the tree, period. They're just, it's catastrophic to the ash population. That the EAB readiness plan noted that, or recommended that the village use treatments to manage the ash population so that it could be removed and replaced on a time schedule set by the village rather than a time schedule set by Mother Nature. To have to remove several hundred trees in any given year would be extremely negatively impactful to our department operations. As I mentioned, historically remove and replace about 100. For us to exponentially increase that would take a significant toll on all of the other services that we provide. And I think that was recognized. And so the thought was, if we can maintain this population and then strategically remove and replace them at a pace that would maintain our other operations, everybody wins. The cost of that, of course, is fiscal in a large sense. We spend about $25,000 a year just on product. And we spend several 100 hours, 300 hours or so a year on delivering that product. And this is to, as I said, artificially keep this tree population alive and growing. Many of our surrounding communities, if not most, have taken a much more aggressive stance on ash removal and replacement. And it occurred to me this afternoon when I was thinking about it that I probably should have had a list in this memo, but I will certainly put that together for our next discussion. There's countless examples of our neighbors in the North Shore and Milwaukee suburbs west, like I said, who have taken a much more aggressive stance on the removal and replacement of ash, largely from a financial perspective. So when the plan assessment looked at all of this, it characterized our current level of service as low. It also noted that our current level of service does not meet the level that was outlined in the 2009 plan. And then it identified 2 additional levels of service, medium and high, and attempted to put costs to those levels. So that is outlined in your memo. Certainly in the plan document, if you have the opportunity to read it. It is a little bit more exciting than ordinances 3024 and 3025. But I think it provides very good context for any type of future discussions that we might have if you do have the opportunity to read that. So I guess the organizational plan recommended that the village board identify a service level, which echoed the recommendation from the plan itself or the assessment itself that said, this is really a policy matter and it should be the village board that determines what level of service we are providing. That shouldn't necessarily be a department decision. So that is why we're here tonight. I'm happy to answer any further questions or provide additional information going forward if there's anything you would like to see. I want to be clear that in my head, I don't necessarily expect you to put this to rest this evening. That would be great if we could, but it's you know, it's a lot to get your arms around, and it's a big topic and it has far-reaching consequences. So we will schedule it for full board approval when the committee is comfortable with the recommendation. And if that takes a couple of meetings, I have no issues with that.
Thank you, Lan. That was really great. I think you did a really good job summarizing that. And I think while you were talking, I just wanted to specify that the product, the $25,000 is a chemical that we are injecting into these trees. So it's a pretty harsh chemical that we're artificially keeping these trees alive with. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but so that's a yearly product we buy and we inject into these trees. So there's money, resources going into that. You know, I'd love to know, you know, thinking like if we keep this up, you know, how can we look at this as a cost saving, you know, measure? So let's say over the next 4, 8 years, 10 years, we're paying $25,000 a year, plus whatever staff, whatever staff time is in there. You know, we're looking at $250,000. Whereas if we're looking at like a service level B here, $250,000. Where if we're looking at service level B here for $192,000, we are going to be a little bit more aggressive in removing these trees, and which is going to be a lot less of this chemical that we're putting into the trees. Getting it to the point, how long do you think it would take to get to the point of, you know, not using the chemical? Because I'm sure there's some giant trees like we've talked about, like over the 12-inch diameter. Yeah. Like we were talking earlier, I have a 26 diameter ash in the front of my house. I don't want to see that thing go anytime soon. But no. But what do you think? You know, how long do you think it would be to phase out all of these trees 12 inches and less? Do you think we can get it done in the 1 to 3 years?
Yes. Again, I think that depends on how aggressive you want to be. Under any scenario, we will need we need additional resources to remove those trees, excuse me. So while I recognize that it's always a balance, right? We may want to do something and we may want to do it at a pace that we can justify for multiple reasons. But I think we all recognize that the resources don't always line up with those intentions. So we just have to do, we have to strike the best balance that we can. And I fully expect that we're going to have to find that balance. We 1,314, if you round up, I don't think you'd want to remove a significant percentage of those in 1 or 2 years. I think you definitely notice that impact, both aesthetically and ecologically and some other reasons. So I think we have to continue to be thoughtful and strategic about this, but I do think we have to increase the pace that we've been removing them. 50 trees a year is just that. I think we do need to improve that pace. Our staff injecting 300 to 400 trees every year. I don't know. I mentioned earlier today to Trustee Ursink, I don't particularly like the use of this word in this context, but I don't know that that's sustainable. That's a significant amount of resources, both in hours and dollars, that, I know that we could find other places to spend, whether it's in DPW or it's, in police, at the library, a senior center. The list is long. There's always places to spend that money. Trees are important, but I'm not sure that this is something that we want to do indefinitely.
Yeah. And, and I'm sorry, I should have let Trustee Bockhorst or Trustee Baldoff speak before I did. Trustee Baldoff, do you have any thoughts on this?
I do. I think I'd be inclined to move forward as aggressively as we responsibly can from a resource and staff perspective. I would hate to see a future board having this same conversation in 6 or 10 years and saying, gosh, we're spending all this money now, or potentially because we haven't been at the right pace in years past. So I'd hate to kind of kick this can down the road. And so it would be my preference to, I think to the point of finding the right balance, we're going to need to find the balance, but I would like to be as aggressive as we responsibly can here.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great perspective. Trustee Bockhorst.
No, I agree with what Melissa said. And also, Leanne, I do have a couple of questions. And so, this isn't it's not an easy fix, because these are mature trees, right? And these are all, if memory serves, all in the public right of way.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a handful in the parks, but for the vast majority are in our street trees. Yep.
But this does not include any of the trees that are on private property, which
correct.
A whole different,
Yeah, that's a whole different can of worms.
Yeah. Sorry, you're gonna hear my dog howling here pretty soon too, and this cat, of course they wait. Yeah, they wait until, just like children, until you're doing something else. Okay, so you had mentioned 1,800 down to, what was the number? 1,200.
Currently, we have 1,387.
I might. Okay, and then not only, so I can understand the dilemma here as well. So removing the mature trees causes a variety of things. Aesthetics, as you mentioned, also the amount of increase in the heating, right, of our village, and, and any kind of ecological and conservation and other kind of issues. But, and as you mentioned, Arthur, this is an inoculation that's, highly chemical there, and it's not, as you said, Leanne, not entirely sustainable, correct? And you have to do them early and often. So, what are other municipalities doing, or what, I, I can't just, we have to factor in a variety of variables, not just academics in our decision-making process here. And so, and I know that we're a small department, well,
Mhm.
relative.
Yeah, relatively, yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our program was actually modeled on the city of Milwaukee's. Some of our criteria were a bit different, but it's a very similar approach in that we both intended to use the chemical treatment as a tool to manage the ash population. They've been more aggressive on their removals than we have. Some of our neighbors, particularly Whitefish Bay, Cedarburg, trying to think who else, Whitefish Bay, if memory serves, started with a thought process of doing some chemical treatment. They were using a different method, but they fairly quickly moved away from that and have just simply been removing and replacing the trees. That is what many communities have been doing. They've just decided that, it is going to be painful, but delaying it doesn't necessarily make it less painful. And so many of our neighbors have been more aggressive on the removals than we have. I should clarify, because I don't think I did that earlier, that our 2009 program really targeted only removing and replacing the smallest trees. The initial recommendation said anything under 8 inches, we should remove and replace and start with those first.
Under what, I'm sorry?
Under 8-inch diameter,
Oh,
not
okay.
height. The recommendations from the plan assessment changed that lower threshold from 8 inches to 12 inches. Essentially, that is how we're operating now, at that 12-inch mark. So what that really means is we would continue to protect the very largest trees, and we would really be focusing our immediate attentions on the smaller population for multiple reasons. Smaller trees are much easier to remove and replace. They're labor hours, it's quicker, we can be more efficient. So we really can bite off a bigger percentage of the population in a shorter period of time if we just focus on the small ones. And then as we move through that, we will continue to move up to a certain diameter. But certainly the large ones, anything over 20 inches at this point, I don't see us having a conversation about for several years.
And I can, if I could add, the City of Milwaukee's forestry program, recently, one of the updates that they gave is that they extended their, how do I say it? The amount of time between replacement and not even just replacement of trees, but even, inoculating trees and this is across the board dealing with trees, so not just the diseased ash trees, trimming, et cetera. And what they found is the cost then that they had to absorb at the end of the day was significantly higher based on keeping on a regular schedule in forestry. And I know we've kind of kicked the can a little bit here. Some of it environmental reasons, that big flood of 2010,
Yep.
And other things. So anyway, these are all considerations that we have to keep in mind when we make the decision. I'm not saying I have the right answer. I don't, still learning here, but it's not an easy, like, let's just do this.
Yeah, looking at just from a budgetary perspective, long range, is this $113,000 kind of our current service level? Is this what we have earmarked now for the next several years, Leanne, or what were we?
I wouldn't say earmarked. I would say what that number reflects is an approximate annual cost for this level of service as it's being provided now. And that would not, currently the annual funding for EAB treatments is funded through the capital budget. I know that Mark wants to have some conversations about that. He has some concerns about whether that is really the appropriate funding mechanism. But so that 113 is a combination of the time, the labor hours that come out of the general fund operating budget, and the product purchase from the capital budget across typically 3 staff members. And then for the last several years, we've hired a seasonal horticultural intern. And their primary duty has been to assist forestry with a specific emphasis on the ash management and doing the actual injections.
That's great. My other just 2 brief questions, then I can kind of, move this along a little quicker. Are we looking at quicker maturing trees potentially? Because I know if we're a little bit more aggressive removing these current ash, and I know probably, I'm guessing the 8 to 12 inch diameter, they're not super mature as
Right.
a 26-inch tree would be. So it's not going to be super noticeable, but I mean, I think that's the beautiful thing about Shorewood is our tree lined streets, and not only
Definitely.
that, but what it can do for stormwater and what the trees do for our environment is just critical.
Yeah.
Would we be looking at trees that could mature faster if we're removing?
I would say, that's a question probably best posed to Ben.
Yeah.
I will tell you that from my level of understanding of forestry, typically your faster growing trees will be a weaker or a softer wooded tree. And that's not ideal for a street tree. But there certainly are varieties, your oaks tend to grow much slower than some of your other varieties. And I think Ben does a really nice job of trying to make sure that we have a good mix overall, and then a good mix on each block. Because it's not all that helpful to diversify your forest if you're not spreading that diversification across the entire community.
Yeah.
So our goal, which is following an industry best practice, is to not have more than 10% of any particular species make up our total forest. Right now, I don't know if you had the opportunity to see it. Rebecca sent it out in the Friday update, not this past Friday, but the Friday prior. We have a great dashboard that we have on our GPS or GIS, system. And it actually is it's live. So if one of our foresters goes out and removes a tree and makes that update in the field, it will automatically reflect on that dashboard. So you can see the exact species diversification that we have. And the percentage, it's really, well, I mean, I'm kind of a geek that way, but it's very cool.
Yeah.
And so,
that's something I can share. Can I share that? I
Yeah.
have not looked at that yet, but I'm super excited to jump on it after this meeting, and I'd love to. I think people would geek out about that in the community. So
Yeah.
I'd love to share that.
I will. I can resend that.
Yeah,
tomorrow,
if you could send that to me,
if you
that'd be
like.
awesome. Yeah, that'd be really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So species diversification is always a goal, and there's many factors that Ben takes into account when he selects species for specific sites. But we can certainly have a Q&A with Ben if you ever want to do that too.
I think that'd be great. And maybe when this comes to full board, it'd be nice to have him, and we can bring him into the mix as well. Even though you do a great job of talking about this too.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, I should also say that we recently promoted one of our foresters to the lead forester. And Ben, while Ben is an ISA certified forester, he is actually our horticulturist. So Stuart Corte is our lead forester, and is a great resource in that too. But he's going to be taking over some of those forestry duties from Ben. So either one of them would be a great resource, and we can definitely do that.
Yeah, well, it's great that we have so much talent here in in Shorewood. So I'm very, very happy about that. Trustee Bockhorst, did you have something?
Oh yeah, just a couple quick things, and not to beat a dead horse here, but yeah, I understand the whole diversification, crop diversification, especially with like one of the reasons that emerald ash borer is so prevalent is there's a prevalence of these kind of trees, right? And they must have grown quickly and they're pretty, or for whatever reason, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but
They make great, EAB aside, they make fantastic street trees.
sure. So yeah, it's unfortunate that we have this disease, but not saying we want to do this, but ages ago, Victory Garden Initiative and a lot of the other environmental groups around Shorewood and beyond, we're looking for ways to looking for a system to try to map out urban, what's it called? For example, if people have cherry trees or apple trees and other things like that, and I know those are not common, great street trees, because they produce a lot of waste and they're messy and pests and other kind of things. But with the dashboard that you mentioned, I can't believe I missed that because I'm not as nerdy as you are in this regard, Leanne, although I strive to be.
Oh, well, who doesn't?
I know, right? So anyway, I'm elated to hear that. And I forget my whole second point. I'm trying to queue up my stuff on the computer for the JPL, so forgive me.
Well, I think, for me personally, I would definitely love to move towards this level of service B medium, which would increase the minimum diameter of tree, ash, remove all green and white ash tree less than 12-inch in diameter, and all European ash, regardless of size, within 3 years. Level of service B has higher costs in years 1 through 3, with cost decreasing in year 4. The the annual cost years 1 through 3 of the service level would be $192,192. That would be, I know it's a significant increase. I do think that this is a really important issue for us to jump into now, so we don't continue kicking the can down the road. So that would be where I would love to see this go. It sounds like, there's some interest there. Is that, you guys feeling the same?
Yes, but one of the things I did want to ask is, I know that we haven't really done this in the recent future, but I think we'll probably get back towards this. And sorry to Melissa, if you were up next, forgive me, I'll try to be quick. Would be having this go to budget independently, just for the budgetary reasons and trying to get since even though we all have to be, that's their number one priority as trustees or as fiduciaries, but also just to kind of get their take on the financial impact so we could have that context from other electeds as we kind of fold that into our discussion, because I'd like to be as aggressive as possible. I want to anyway, I'm going to stop there.
So we'll make the suggestion of where we want to see this go tonight, and then it would be recommended to the budget committee, or would it be recommended to the full board?
I think that's up to probably President McKeag and Rebecca and also Leanne. So I'm just saying that as an input, it might be nice if we are ready, and I'm not saying we are, or even if we're not, for them to have an opportunity to at least hear a quick presentation, or just think of it in the financial realm and look at the schedule and the long range financial plan. Just a suggestion, not a requirement.
That's great. That's a good suggestion. My recommendation would naturally have been just to make this a full board conversation. But if you want to make a recommendation to move it onto budget, then we can definitely do that as well. So
I'm not tied to either, so I would defer to Leanne and staff at that point.
Yeah, Leanne, do you have a suggestion on where?
I really think that Trustee Backhorst was correct in saying that really that's a conversation that should be had and directed probably by President McKeag and Manager Ewald. They may have an alternate suggestion as to a specific but separate discussion in the longer budget process. Perhaps similar to the way we do the long range financial plan. I don't know, but I think that would be a good conversation to have with those two ladies.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. We have a lot of huge projects coming up, so I know this is the one in front of us right now, and this is really important, but they're just going to keep coming, and they're all going to be important. So my heart goes here. This is like something I feel really like close to, but I think we have got to look everything holistically. So, do we want to just put this off, Trustee Bockhorst?
So I was gonna say that I'm fine with the option that you presented or that you suggested, Arthur, but it doesn't have to be the end all be all. So I'm comfortable with that. But I guess I'm just kind of looking at a different collaborative model and just hearing their input too, but not again requiring the decision that we make.
Sure.
I don't know if that makes sense. This is very different from how we've been doing business. So I'm fine with, going forward, but I'm just suggesting that if they get a chance in the three, and sometimes with the three members, it's a lot easier to
Sure.
talk about things than bringing all of us in it.
I wonder if I could then make a motion where I connect with Leanne, President McCaig, and Rebecca, and kind of figure out the best next step for this piece. Would that be proper?
I'm fine with that, Melissa.
That works.
I don't,
Is that?
I don't know that you need a motion to do
Okay.
that, but you could have a consensus agreement that that would be the next step.
Okay. Do you guys feel comfortable with that? And then I can meet with that group and say that we are interested in level of service B, if that you're fine with that, and then we can kind of distill it down from there. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, sounds great. Well, we'll plan to do that, and then I will, if I can get a meeting sooner. No, once I get the meeting and have that conversation, I'll report back at the next meeting we have. Do I need to motion to adjourn the? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn Public Works.
Melissa, do it. Say so moved.
I so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll-
Fantastic.
Just so you guys know, we have 7 o'clock is when we're scheduled for JPL, so we have a nice 6 minutes.
Set 6 minutes to take a bathroom break or whatever you need.
Yay! Wow.
Hey,
All right.
I could eat my snacks, Arthur.
Just a big block of cheese.
Yes.
That's my type of snack.
All right. See you guys.
All right.
Okay. See you in a bit.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like we're all here. So I'd like to call the 7 PM JPNL committee to order. We have one item on the agenda, and that is to discuss the appointment process for the vacancies for our committees, commissions, etc. I'm just pulling the packet again. Clicked on the wrong thing here for a second. So Sarah, did you want to take it away or did you want me to introduce?
I'm fine with either or. So if you want to introduce, if you have things to add, otherwise I can give some past history if need be.
Okay, I'll go ahead. We have a variety of committees and commissions in the village that have vacancies or pending vacancies, and just a little background information. Commissioners and committee members serve until replaced unless they resign, effective a certain date. All of our committees, have a variety of dedicated individuals from the village, and some of them have members that no longer or don't live in the village, depending on whether or not it's the CDA or not, I'm sorry, the Business Improvement District, and some of the other ones have different requirements. So I thought I've spoken with not only Sarah in advance of this meeting as far as, how to go about filling these positions and what kind of course of action we want to take as a committee. And what I had communicated to her and we had discussed and was that instead of just jumping into this, especially since this is our first committee with all three of us together, and Melissa, your first committee structure in general, that we might want to just discuss some of and look for kind of a collaborative process here. And how things have been done in the past, whether it's recent past or long ago, does not necessarily represent how we will be doing things going forward. Anyway, so with that, we all have the memo here, and it has a little bit of the history as well as some of the delays and the appointment opportunities, etc. But so I thought that it would be a good idea for us to kind of get down, work through some, maybe for lack of a better term, ground rules, but just to outline our collaborative process, because I do not want this to be, in my opinion, the best way that we can move forward is to have a lot of discussion, buy-in to how the system goes instead of a lot of uncertainty. And even though I'm the chair, I consider us a cohesive, hopefully, group in a team. And sorry, Arthur, but as the longest standing board member here, I will say, I've served under now 3 different village presidents, and I'm always looking for continuous improvement in the process. And I have no problem trying new things or, going back on it. But what I want to ensure is a couple of things. One, that our committees, commissions have the understanding of what their roles are as commissioners and committee members. 2, that they're able to use their intrinsic motivation, which is the #1 driver of success in any organization. So that they're empowered and understand what their charge is, but also have enough autonomy to be creative and to bring to us some great things. I don't feel that a village, then this is my opinion, and I have no problem if you disagree on this, but I don't see us as trustees as experts in the field. We're jack of all trades here, and we're very fortunate to have, invest in individuals bringing their arcane knowledge and their skill set and passions to this village. So I know that, so I'll stop there. Sarah, maybe you can pick up the pace so I can put this on mute for my legitimate baby dog.
Yep. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. So the policies that help kind of guide our boards, committees, and commissions were included. Most commissioners or board members serve 2 years or 2 terms, max of 9 years. So I've only been here 3 years. In the last 3 years, most committee members have served 2 terms and then have cycled off. So there's a little bit of change, from that policy from previous. Prior to that, a lot of them did serve potentially 3 terms or 9 years, depending on what board, committee, commission they were on. And so in the past, they've done interviews also, the Judiciary Personnel and Licensing Committee. And I'm not exactly sure on that process, so Tammy, you may have to fill in a little bit, but they did do interviews. I know there were interviews conducted, I think in 2019, JPL met, reviewed applications, and then conducted interviews for the HRC positions. So it has varied in the past 5 years or so for sure in how it's been done. So I guess what I need for you guys to discuss as a group is how you would like to move forward with those appointments. There are some appointments that the president is, she or he could refer a name to the board with board approval without going through JPL. So they do have the authority to do that under the policy. So the ones that are included tonight are the ones that we would be looking for sure, for appointments at some point. And I do know that all of these committees right now, with potentially the exception of the bid, could sit without them being filled from this meeting or in the next meeting or so. So they are not having quorum issues. The one thing I would say is if you're looking to do interviews, I would strongly suggest holding a special JP&L meeting aside from a village board meeting. I know that's not a popular decision, but it is a little easier than to try to cram it all into one JP&L night prior to a board, especially if you are looking at a lot of applications and having interviews, because the Public Spaces Committee is a brand new committee that will have 10 spots that need to be filled. So that will take some time. But that is kind of where we are at this point.
Great. And then a couple of other things is that as Sarah had mentioned, there are some committee. So first off, we do not have an ordinance or the term limits is not set in stone, first off. So I know that we had to resend out a postcard in order to get enough people interested in vacancies. So there is no, I really hate, and I say this a lot, you're going to hate this after a while, Melissa, but I don't like unnecessary urgency to dictate important decisions. And in this case, again, we don't want to drag out the process, but at the same time, we have a sizable number of applicants, but we still have, we want to do this correctly. And a couple of other things that I want to mention is that we don't want to just fill the committees for filling the committee's sake. We want to ensure that we listen to the wants and needs of the existing committees. Not that, there might, how do I say this? I think that, again, making this a much more collaborative approach and also going back to interviewing, because that hasn't happened in the last couple of years. And that may have been for good reason, with COVID and whatnot. But I think that anyone who wants to serve on these committees, they actually have a big responsibility and a big charge, meaning that there are quorums, there are responsibilities for committee members. And these are, just like us, pretty much volunteer positions with a heavy lift at times. So we want to ensure that those who serve understand that and aren't just filling a seat. And then also bring to the table, that collaborative spirit and the willingness to, move the ball forward. So I do know that one of the things that I would want to look for, which I hasn't always been the case, is that people who have never even attended a meeting, I'm not saying that would automatically disqualify you, but perhaps that would be a condition of actually being appointed. So, even if there are some exceptional candidates that we want to advance, for me, it's going to be important that the individuals know what their charge is, what they're getting into, because we've all seen it, even on volunteer committees and commissions. They're highly politicized in today's culture. And that's not just unique to Shorewood. That's a national trend. And so we want to make sure that that folks are, understand that what's ahead of them. I'm not saying it's a bad experience. I was my first committee or the only committee the only official appointment to a substantial committee was the Conservation Committee, when 4 of us got that reinstated back in, I think it was 2006, after it had been defunct for about 20 years, or maybe even more, after in the 80s, after they achieved their goal of recycling in the village. So we had to fill a 12 member, I don't even know if the charter is the same, but a 12-member committee, including a high school representative, and get that going again. So we were able to do that because we were really passionate about it. And, but just one, so, and then also Sarah had mentioned a good point. The Open Spaces Committee is a new committee, but it's a hybrid. And if the members of the Parks Commission and the Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Committee, they're kind of given first crack of if they want to continue to serve. So one of the things that I will do as chair of the JPNL is I will be reaching out, and have been reaching out to all of the committees, and just trying to get the pulse of not just the chair of these committees, but any membership that wants to give some feedback and input into what their experience has been like, what they're looking for, where they'd like to go, and if they want to continue to serve, or if they're ready to move on. So only gone through, we've all just received our committee assignments and whatnot as a board. So but I do want to say this, I don't want to scare anyone into thinking this is going to be a year-long thing, that we're going to do this all the time. No, we can be effective and efficient as we go forward. So.
Yep, and I would agree. So the members of the last JPNL committee and the board approved a new application, which I think will be helpful for you guys to kind of rank what committees they, have more interest in, and if they have attended a meeting. So you'll be able to see that on their applications. And then another thing for both Arthur and Melissa, who are newer, what happens is the staff liaison works with the chairperson of that board or committee to kind of go over some of the skill sets that may be needed, or qualifications that they're looking for an opening in that board. Those are also provided to kind of give you some guidance of what you're looking at when you're looking at the applications, right? Because that can be overwhelming. And then the applications are included. So that's kind of the appointment process in a nutshell. Once you do, decide on moving forward with what names you'd like to move forward with, those names will be presented at a preceding village board meeting. And then the village board as a whole will vote on that slate of names. And then all of the reappointees and new appointees would attend a board's committee and commission training. So like I said, it's pretty much similar to it has been in the past. I think the big decision is if you guys want to entertain the idea of doing interviews and how you would like to proceed as a group.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will open it up for discussion, and don't feel pressured, but then I have some other points, but I'll save those. And I noticed Tyler's on here too. So if staff at any time wishes to speak or, chime in, please let us know, but I'll open it up to the trustees at this point.
I definitely agree with your point about, the falling prey to manufactured urgency. And I would want to be mindful of that. But, one of the things that was important to me as I was, considering to run for this position is how to make sure that we are attracting more diverse candidates to want to serve in some of these roles. So that's just something I want to think about as we go about this. I heard you say, that there was a postcard sent out about getting people to serve. I just would like us to think about how we are communicating to residents in the village about what these roles are and why they're important, and why we need their talent to be a part of our village. So I think that's something that we should be really intentional about in this group. And I think part of it is just setting the tone as trustees and as a board that, we are a professional group of people who care about this village and the people in it. And that's how we're going to operate. And if that sounds good to you, we want you to be a part of this as well. So to me, I think, to the extent that we can, kind of maintain a status quo on these committees and commissions while we think about how to do it better. I would hate to say like, oh, we need to like refill all these positions, when what we really need to think about is our approach to filling the positions.
Yeah, that's a great point. So just a couple notes that I have here is that, I'd really like to see these boards, these commissions be a snapshot of our community. I'd like them to see they represent everybody and all opinions, because that's going to create a better, more productive Shorewood. I really want to see them be collaborative. We've seen, I don't want to get political, but I was on the bid board before. We would recommend the best people that we thought would be best for what we needed as a bid. And our past village president, would put her own people, I'm not saying her own people, but would make her own suggestions for those roles, which, it's really frustrating as a board, because you're looking, what you need, what you want to grow your organization. And so I think, I don't know how we can better work with that scenario. I know it's the president's job, and they get all, they have that right and that opportunity. And but I think what we really need to do is have more productive, collaborative groups that can really, that are a great snapshot of our community. The other thing that I really dislike is, or I shouldn't say the other thing I dislike, but the one thing I really dislike is when we get these applications and there are people check every box, for what committee or what committee they want to be a part of. So you'll get the application and it's about 7 different committees, and that's, for me, that's not productive. That just shows somebody wants to be on a board for being on a board. They don't want to be on a specific board because of their interests. I'd rather have somebody that's specifically interested in conservation, or our Board of Appeals, or the bid, or the CD. I want people that are very focused on certain topics, because those are going to be the most productive members, not somebody that just wants to be on a board because they're new to Shorewood. I may be wrong in that philosophy, but whenever I see that, whenever I see those applications, I automatically, in my mind, disqualify those folks, because I just feel like they want to be on a board to be on a board. Whereas we need to find people that have specific interests and goals, and that want to work together with others. And when putting together these boards, I'm not, it's not let's stack the deck with everybody that agrees with us. Let's get a mixture of people and ideas in there to really hammer these things out, because I think that's something that's really killed our village in the past is these vacuums that we've created, and let's let them air their differences out in these committees and come up with consensus there, and then we can kind of take the recommendations. So those are just my ideas. I don't know if that really helps push this conversation forward. I do like the idea of taking a look at all these folks. I don't know if it's necessary to totally interview people, unless we can narrow it down to 2 or 3 people that we really like for one spot. Then I think an interview would be a good choice. But I would say the president, JPL chair, if we all could look at applications and kind of talk through it in a JPL meeting, I think that would be a good start.
Okay, well, I really like where you guys are going with this, and I agree. And Melissa, I think you really hit it with, we want to professionalize, and it's not that our committees and commissions aren't professional right now, but I believe there's been kind of a little bit of a dearth as far as not only synchronicity, but also there's been a big paradigm change from what, as I mentioned before, from the past, where a lot of the measures and things were driven from the committees, and to a shift in the last 3 to 5 years of a top-down organizational structure of, we're going to assign things to committees. And again, they're volunteers. It's, for the most, that it's a very difficult thing to take time out of your, professional and family life to do stuff for the village. And then to do it at once a month and have a directive from a top-down kind of situation is much different, like I said before, than, again, intrinsic motivation or people doing things that they're passionate about. And we really need these committees. I mean, we have a 1.5 square miles, 13,500 people, and a lot of talent in this municipality. And so and Arthur, you made some really great points too. So I guess where I'm going is, I'm willing to work with the president and do this stuff, but I want to make sure that you guys can be part of that if you want to. So I don't want a bunch of extra meetings, but if we need them, okay, that came out wrong. I don't think how do I say this? If extra meetings are needed, great. But I will keep you guys abreast of wherever we are going and invite you along. And if it has to result in an extra publicly noticed meeting, that's the way it is. And that's fine. But I want to make sure that we do this right. And I forget how you mentioned this. I say unnecessary urgency, Melissa. What did you say?
I said manufactured urgency.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So, and maybe there are some places that we don't necessarily need to have a formal sit down interview. I know it's come up in the past that, oh, we went away from that because it worries people and this and that. No, I'm sorry. Like anyone who's willing to join a professional organization has the chops to go through a very congenial interview process, which we have. And I think, Melissa, you also hit it on the diversity aspect. Not only diversity in the traditional sense that people say, maybe it was you, Arthur, forgive me. But I think that one of the things I would like to step up a little bit is to have more of a, and this could be, you know, something that we do over my last year here. I have 1 year left on this village board. And I hope to leave this organization in, you know, a more inclusive environment than I started with 8 years ago. But I would like to see, maybe we ask a little bit more. Maybe there's things like a equity statement. I know we have that built in. We have a kind of a generic, and it's a good start, right? But maybe we look, and it doesn't have to be that, or how good of a team player can you be? Because that is really fundamental when you are working, especially in a volunteer board or committee. Like, how well can you play with others? So I don't have the answers to this. I'm not a PR, I'm sorry, I'm not an HR professional, but there are a lot of examples out there, either from the league, from other municipalities and whatnot, just to ensure. And I'm not saying that we have a problem right now, but here's an example I would like to give. Being an ambassador for the village. So we have, I know that we have a manual and a training that's done for new members, and maybe we up it a little bit and kind of, you know, again, serving is, it's not only an honor and a privilege, but it's a responsibility, and not just to ourselves, but, you know, to the municipality. And I know that there are a lot of people with whom I've spoken with over the past several years who have mentioned, yeah, I don't want to get involved in this situation. So creating the culture and climate that we want others to be a part of, I'm very confident that we can do that. I'm not sure exactly how, and this is going to be all of us and not just the three of us here, plus you know, Sarah and Tyler, but I'm confident and really optimistic that we can get there. And I see that it's 7:24. I'm going to allow you guys to speak and kind of close down here. But Sarah, before they continue, what do you need from us tonight?
So before we conclude at 7:30, I definitely need to know if you're proceeding with interviews, and if so, then we probably should look at a special meeting date and have agreement on that. Otherwise, the next village board meeting would be May 17th.
Could I ask that if we, and I hope that we don't do, well, if we were to necessitate 1 or 2 special meeting dates,
Mm-hmm.
the quorum is just 2 of us, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
and
It would just be a special JPL meeting. It would not be a special village board meeting.
correct. And what I would like to say is that doesn't mean that to Melissa and Arthur, that doesn't mean that I need to be there. Like, part of my leadership style is sometimes I'm going to rely on you guys to chair the JPNL. And not that I will assign it to you, I will always ask. And that's even if I'm going to be there, because I think that part of our own organizational, or what we want to project out, at least what I would like others to see, is that everyone leads at some point, if that makes sense. And Melissa, with strategic initiatives, that's always in the past been kind of the fluff thing, but it's actually was originally created as where the big ideas go in order to be really worked out. So I think you're going to see a lot more, on in your committee than SI has in the past couple of years. But until then, I might lean on you a bit here if you're willing. And because, I think all of us have really valuable skill sets and, backgrounds that we can bring in. I think, again, to the whole diversity thing, just having different styles, at different times might be beneficial. But to Sarah's point, so yeah, I'm not a big proponent of special meetings, but if we need to have one or two quick ones, okay. But in order to get to what we need to fill when, I think that's kind of maybe, and if you guys have something else you want to add, please go ahead. But I know Elder Services Board is pretty tight. There's 3 of the 5 seats, right?
Correct. They would need quorum by August for sure. I think the bid would like their appointments for June at some point. And I know Tyler, I believe, would like the public spaces to be by June, if not for sure July.
Okay, and then
Tyler.
Really quickly, Arthur, before you speak, 2 things. It looks like the bid is forwarding 4 potentials, and
correct.
I believe that I was told that President McKeag will be consulting with the bid and not circumventing necessarily, so that there's really not much we need to do as far as the bid is concerned. Is that right?
That is correct. I think you will need to at least agree on the names, and if that you're not going to look at any further applications than what the bid has put forward. So you do have a decision as that group, to offer up your own names to the president, but that's up to you guys as a group.
Is it a group decision, or is it something that we could determine that if we have some objections as individuals, we can go ahead and reach out to her?
I think you could do either or. I don't know. I'll be honest, I haven't had.
Okay. No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
How about this? Let's find out about that. We don't have to do that the second, but I was part of, I've been on the board for a while. I've seen the bid put forward names and then have those names discounted unilaterally. I agree with, I think it was you, Arthur, that had mentioned that I don't appreciate that process. And also, especially on the flip side, serving on committees in the past, it would have, that's kind of an organizational adversarial situation. But go ahead, Arthur, you had some things you wanted to say.
I can wrap it up quick. I mean, I guess I really don't have much more to say. I mean, are we going to schedule a time to look at whatever applications we need to? Are we hoping to do that tonight, or are we going to do that at our next meeting?
I would definitely like, if you're going to schedule, if we have a date in mind, and if you are, the next one is just looking at applications and then potentially having interviews on another date, or if you want to decide to, each pick out your top whatever, and then call all those people in for an interview at the special meeting. So those are the 2 things I need determined for you tonight.
But I'd love to be able to just sit down and look at all the applications. If there's a Dropbox somewhere where we can just go look at all the applications for all the different,
everybody has access to the Dropbox, so I'm happy to send the link again tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And what we could do is, if there's anything that sticks out to us, maybe we could red flag that, and if not, we could each send our recommendations along to Trustee Bockhorst, who then can, or Tyler or Sarah, whoever's best in that chain. Maybe we could funnel them to you, Trustee Bockhorst. You could funnel them then down to Sarah. It doesn't matter, but
just send them directly to me. That's probably.
I'll send them directly to you, Sarah. Yep. So then we don't have to. And if there's one that's really close, or if there's like 3 of us don't agree on, like, we have different ideas for one department, maybe we could bring them in we could schedule a separate time to meet and to discuss for those particular cases. Does that sound reasonable?
No, that's a great suggestion. Melissa, did you want to add to that, or?
No, that works for me. I think that's a good approach.
Okay, I do think that we might want to I think we should do that, but we might want to have one quick meeting where we kind of set the parameters of our evaluation process and what we're looking at. Not that we all have to have the same process, but just so that we understand what we're each kind of looking for. if
Yeah,
that
and
makes
so,
sense.
and even if you would hold your interviews, you know, the night of May 17th, that I would have a meeting before then to kind of go over then, you know, what applicants you want to pull in and what your parameters are, you know, to hold those interviews so that they run smoothly.
Okay, so what I'm understanding is that you will provide us a list of the most urgent so that we can triage.
Yep.
And then we will each review. Again, we haven't discussed a criteria, but we're all adults and professionals and have dealt with a variety of people. I mean, Melissa, you've been in politics for a while. Arthur, you know, you're an entrepreneur, and yeah, I'm pretty confident we can do it. But I think then if we come together and just kind of talk it through for a real quick, you know, rapid, we don't have to talk through each individual person, but just kind of the things that we're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I'm confident that we can evaluate the individuals, you know, and then go from there. And at that meeting where we convene together, maybe we can determine what, I mean, I don't really necessarily think of point value. I think if one of us has a strong opinion on something, I would want to hear, like Melissa, if you were really advocating for an individual, even if Arthur and I were not, I would really want to hear your scope, because it might be something that I'm not, you know, I'm going to learn from both of you, just like we're all going to learn from each other. I don't know if that clarifies or muddies the waters here, but
I think we're good. So we're going to look at a date to schedule to kind of go over the process, and I'll list the most urgent ones that need to be filled. And then we'll kind of take a look at applications, because the other portion is we still want kind of like a list of backups that if somebody, you know, was to either move out of Shorewood or couldn't serve their term anymore or something would come up, that we could go kind of to that list that you guys, you know, went through, and especially if you did interviews, so we wouldn't have to schedule more interviews going down the line.
and that's a great point. If we actually do go to the point of interviewing, I would want to say that at least, let's say we interview 6 people and we come up with 1 or 2 people that were dynamite, that we'd want them on the reserve list. And then even if more, you know, if things opened up, we wouldn't want open it up again, most likely for interviews, even if some other candidates came in and looked great on paper. I don't know. We'll have to, this is a, what's it called? A living process, we'll say.
So do you guys want to set a date now? Is there dates that don't work?
For me, the only date that doesn't work, it's a travel date. Actually, forget it. It's a board meeting and I'll be back in time.
I mean, I'm busy all the time, so I would, you know, listen to both of your suggestions for when you guys can meet. Is there a range that you want to try to get this accomplished by? I know we said June for certain, we want to do it before,
something before the May 17th meeting, so.
okay,
right?
before the May
If
17th.
we can, if we can't, so that would only give us like, because I have to give it 48 hours notice.
How about Mondays, guys? I'm sorry to interrupt, but in the past, we always tried to say Monday nights.
Monday works for me. Melissa, does that work for you on Monday?
Let me check. So next Monday?
Monday the 10th, then I think is what you're looking at.
Let me check.
Can we do this via Doodle also, Sarah? or-
We could.
I could do it. Yep.
How
We've
about
got a
this?
little late. We've got a baseball game, but I can make it.
I can do a later meeting if we need to. It doesn't have to be at 6 or 7. But also, how about this? Look at your schedule. We'll tentatively put in Monday. And then maybe Sarah will, or one of us will, I'll put out a doodle and we can try to
And
see
at
a
this,
backup
yeah,
date.
even at the same time, Melissa, if you want to send your thoughts, you know, it'd be nice to have you aboard, but if you want to just send your thoughts, and Trustee Bockhorst and I can also talk through it too. It'd be nice to have you there, to be honest with you, but I don't think it's, if you wanted to miss it for baseball, that's fine.
No, I can make it work. I can, you know, I can step away for a little bit.
We can
Kids
do that
baseball, or are you
anytime. It doesn't
playing?
have to be.
Oh, no, not me. My
Darn,
son
Arthur.
plays Little League, so.
I only say that because Arthur and I were talking about, we're going to take on Whitefish Bay.
Yeah,
Tyler, we're counting on you. We know you're a baseball
I haven't
guy.
told Tyler. I was going to tell Tyler
Sarah.
this. I was going to tell Tyler,
Okay.
Tyler, we want to schedule a softball game against Whitefish Bay, against their like like village board and there's school board, and if we can and then
We
like.
might have to open it up to staff,
Yeah,
Done. Yeah, we can definitely make that work.
let's do this,
Okay.
Tyler. All right.
but
get on
let's get this scheduled first.
Okay.
So,
So,
all right,
the games are at
And-
5:45. I would assume your game's at 5:45, right, Melissa? Yep.
Mhm.
So, I mean, is there a way we can do it a little earlier? I mean, I know everybody's gonna get day
No.
jobs, or we could do it
I
after the
can't.
7
game.
work?
What was that?
7,
7 is fine. If I miss the end of the game, it's, you know,
7:30?
it's,
I mean, 'cause we
it's
don't
not
have
the
to
end
do
of the
that
world.
I can do it after your game. If
Let's
I'm-
if we
we're
do
keeping it to
7:45.
1 hour.
We do
I'm not kidding.
7:45.
1 hour.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what time are we saying? 7?
7:45. Does that work better for you?
7:45?
Sure.
Was that too late for you, Sarah? I mean,
No, that's fine.
let's do 7:45 then.
We're knocking this out, pun intended, in 1 hour.
Okay.
All
Adding, what is it, 1,000?
right, it's 7:36. I'm
All
sure.
right.
I'm sure
All
everybody
right,
wants to get on.
all right.
I just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Sec-
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Aye. Thank
All
you.
right.
All right.
All right, there's a different link, I imagine.
There's a different link. Yep.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks.
guys.